Hello and welcome back to What Helen Reads. I'm Helen and today I'm taking you through exactly what I've got on my Kindle. So to start off with, the Kindle that I've got is the Paperwhite 10th generation, and this is only the second Kindle that I've ever owned. I tend to keep them for a long time. It's a no frills Kindle, one of the most basic versions that they do for the Paperwhite, and I absolutely love it because all you can do on it is download and read books. I think it gives you the most lifelike interpretation of reading from a book. Because of the softness of the background, it makes for a really nice reading experience, and because it's got a built-in backlight, it also means that you can read in the dark as well and don't need a light on if it's of an evening and the sun is going down, so you can save yourself a bit of electricity as well. So I really like that. Really handy, lightweight, slips into your bag, take it on holiday, saves you having to sacrifice shoes to replace it with actual books. And yeah, absolutely love it. Now the other thing as well is I do have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. Here in the UK it's about £8 a month, and I've recently signed up to lock in that price for a year, because I think the price is going up for Kindle Unlimited, but I've locked in my price for the year. So the majority of books I do read are Kindle Unlimited books. I do buy the odd book and I also buy the odd physical book as well. But like I say, the majority of what I do read tends to be on Kindle Unlimited. Now with Kindle Unlimited, you can actually download and borrow up to 20 books before they cut you off and you can't download anymore and you have to return something. And I generally keep sort of 17-18 books downloaded onto my Kindle at any one time. And I'm pretty good about downloading and then returning them as soon as I've read them. Now I also tend to be a mood reader, so I do very much read what I'm in the mood for, so hence I need the extra spaces to you know, only download about 17 and keep 2 or 3 spaces available for just mood reading and downloading what I fancy. And very rarely stick to any kind of like TBR. If I'm reading something I'm really enjoying, I'll carry on with the series. If it's a type of book that I feel like I fancy reading, then I'll pick something else. So although these books are on my Kindle, they're not necessarily books I'm going to read immediately next, although they are a high priority. What I tend to do in terms of managing my TBR list is I have a variety of wish lists set up on Amazon, which are private to me, and I categorise them by dark romance, historical romance, paranormal romance, contemporary romance and so on. And therefore if I'm flicking through Instagram or watching a booktuber review a book and I think that sounds interesting, I'll add it to one of my wish list categories depending on the category. So if it's a mafia romance, I'll add it to the dark romance, mafia romance category, and then when I'm in the mood for one of those books, I'll go onto the wish list, flick through, see which one I fancy and download it to my Kindle and have it ready to go. So the ones that I've actually downloaded, like I said, aren't necessarily a priority in terms of the ones that I'm immediately going to read, but I've downloaded them for a reason, and sometimes that is because I do want it to be a priority over the books that are on my wish list. Yeah, and sometimes it's just I've read a book, I finished it, and I want to read the next one in the series, but I don't necessarily fancy reading it straight away, so I'll just download it to my Kindle so it's ready to go for when I want to pick it back up. So today what I thought I'd do is just go through all of the books that I've downloaded to my Kindle that I haven't yet got around to reading, and just let you know a bit about why they're there and if I plan to read them anytime soon. So I've got about 17 or 18 books to get through with you. And what I did was I actually went onto my desktop, went onto my Amazon account, looked at the contents, and then filtered by the oldest to the newest. So these are actually in order of when I actually downloaded them and how long ago I downloaded them. So the oldest one that's on there is The Stopover by T L Swan. So this is part of the Miles High Club series and it's book 1. And the truth is, the reason why this is on there and it's been on here for so long is because I really want to read book 2 in the series, The Takeover, which is Jen from the Book Refuge, or one of Jen from the Book Refuge's favourite books of all time. And I absolutely want to get to this book, but I'm a bit of a completionist, which you'll see as we go through. There's a common theme here in terms of what I've downloaded and why it's there. I'm a bit of a completionist, so I don't really want to read The Takeover until I've read book 1 in the series, which is The Stopover. But I know that having listened to some other people and read reviews, and also very much value what Jen from the Book Refuge says, and I have a very similar reading taste to her. She doesn't care so much for the other books in the series. Takeover is very much her, you know, passion, and so I am less enthused about reading the Stopover, so it's kind of stopping me from getting to the book that I want to read. So I might just take the plunge, delete it from my Kindle Unlimited, like delete it from my Kindle and just download the Takeover and read that instead. But like I say, that's why it's been there for so long, because I'm kind of like, I want to read it, but I'm not that enthused to read it at the same time. So the next one on the list is Brutal Prince by Sophie Lark, and this is book 1 in her Brutal Birthright series. It's a mafia series, which I absolutely want to get to. I'm very, very excited. But again, like I said, I'm a bit of a completionist and I want to read her books in order. So I'm currently working my way through her Underworld series, and I am up to book 5, which you'll see in a minute. That is also one of the books on my Kindle. Then the next one I've got is Good Gone Bad by Giana Darling, and this is book 3 in the Fallen Men series, which is an MC Club series. I've read books 1 and 2, I absolutely love them, and I've just downloaded this one ready to go for when I get around to reading book 3 and moving on with the rest of the series. I'll get to it eventually. I'm just waiting for the mood to strike me to pick this one up. But I believe the heroine in this one is Zeus's daughter, and Zeus is the head of the MC and also the hero from book 2, and also a law enforcement officer, and who is the hero in this one. The next one then is another Sophie Lark, is Anton by Sophie Lark, and like I say, this is book 5 in the Underworld series. I'm making my way through. There's 8 in that series. When I get to 8, I'll obviously start with Brutal Prince, which is also on my Kindle. I've just got up to Anton, so again, the next time I fancy picking up a Russian mafia story set in Paris, I believe it will be, then I will definitely go for that one. Then after that, I've got Bright Like Midnight by Julia Wolfe, and I have got this one on my Kindle because I want to read A Sweet Like Poison, which is book 3 in this series. It's part of her Savage You series. So as I've said, I like to read everything in order. So Bright Like Midnight is the first one in that Savage You series. And also, Julia Wolfe is an author that's going to be at a book signing that I'm going to in London in July, which is Rare 23 London. And therefore, I want to read a couple of hers before I go, because I'm very much interested in getting a signed book from her. So that's on my list, and I'm hoping to get to it very soon. And for a similar reason, I've got Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I've heard so many good things about her books. Loads of people love them and review them and rate them very highly, and I really want to get to one of her books. And also, Anna is going to be at Rare 23 in London as well, so she's another one on my list of authors to read before I get there. Of course, I'll be starting with book 1, which is Twisted Love. So the next one I've got on my list is Immoral by Maggie Cole, and this is book 2 in her Mafia Wars New York series. I absolutely love Maggie Cole, and I've absolutely loved the Mafia Wars series with the Ivanovs and O'Malley family, and I have started the New York series. Now, unfortunately, I've fallen a little bit behind because she is quite a prolific writer. She tends to bring out a book a month, and so I fell behind with the New York series, and so I'm sort of stuck there waiting to read Immoral, which is book 2. But I'm really keen to start the Mafia Wars Island series, and probably by the time you're reading this, I may have even read book 1 in that series already, which is Illicit King. It's kind of annoying me that I haven't finished New York, because I don't really want to start the Island series until I've finished the New York series, but I don't necessarily think they are massively connected, and therefore I just think, so that I don't get further behind, I'm just going to start with Illicit King and see how we get on, and try and backtrack to the Mafia Wars New York as we go. Then the next one in my list is Sold by the Siren by Lexi Hart, and it's co-written by Greg Russell. Now this one is an interesting one, and the reason it's on here is because I read a book by Lexi Hart a couple of, I think last year, and it was her debut novel, and it was called Bought by the Beast. And it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but also set in the mafia world. Now, for a debut novel, it absolutely blew me away. I loved it, and I've reviewed it in my Beauty and the Beast retellings video, and I've talked about it before as well. But there's quite a big gap between her first book and her second book, which has recently been released, and like I said, this time it's co-written with Lexi Hart and Greg Russell. Now, I believe Greg was actually the audio book narrator for book 1, and she asked him to sort of co-write book 2 with her, hence there was a bit of a gap between books 1 and book 2. So I'm really interested to see where this goes and how, if the second book holds up against the first book, which I absolutely loved. Like I say, it's called Sold by the Siren, and I believe it's carrying on with the fairy tale retelling theme, and this one is sort of a Little Mermaid retelling, so I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it looks like, and I am very intrigued to get to that one. Then after that we've got Shifting Gears by Melanie Moreland, and this is book 3 in the Reynolds Restoration series. I absolutely loved books 1 and 2, and I reviewed them in previous videos as well. The first book in this series was Rev to the Max, which I spoke about in my Q1 wrap up as a bit of I didn't rate it 5 stars, but it was kind of like an honorary book for Q1 in terms of how much I enjoyed that one. This is very much set around a small town, and they are motorbike mechanics, car mechanics, and so when I'm in the mood for a small town romance with a cinnamon roll hero and a heroine that really doesn't want to be in a relationship, so I'm assuming it's going to be full of angst, then I'll definitely pick up that one. Then we have Gloam by Mayne, and this is book 4 in her Monstrous series, and Mayne writes monster romances. I've loved all of the books in this series that I've read so far, and in book 3, which is the book before we met Gloam, we found out a little bit about him. He is he's been captured by the lady who has got a travelling caravan, and is kind of there. While he seems to be kind of her captive, he's also there as a bit of a bodyguard for her, and a hero from book 3 takes an interest in Gloam, and so book 4 is going to be their story. So very much looking forward to that one. Again, I'll pick that up the next time I fancy reading a monster romance. Then I have Enthralled by Tiffany Roberts, and this is book 2 in the Spider Mate series. Now, I read the first book, which was Ensnared, just last month, and I absolutely loved it. What I didn't realise when I first picked up that book was that it was book 1 in a trilogy, so there's actually 3 books about the same couple, and I don't normally do that because I feel like reading 3 books about the same couple is a bit of a time investment, when I could be reading, you know, 2 other romance stories. But I really loved Ensnared. It ended on a bit of a cliffhanger, but not so badly that I had to jump straight into book 2, but I definitely want to read book 2 and carry on with their love story. And what I loved about this is the fact that I really don't like spiders. I'm a little bit scared of spiders, and I wasn't quite sure how I was going to love this hero who was essentially a humanoid spider. But he absolutely stole my heart, blew me away, and he was so sweet with the heroine. And like I say, I really enjoyed book 1, and I'm looking forward to carrying on with their love story. Then the next book I've got on my list is Confess by A Zavarelli, and this is book 1 of her Sin City Salvation series. And the reason I have this one on my list is because I really like A Zavarelli's Boston Underworld Mafia series. I really enjoyed that one. I loved all of the books in that series. And I also really enjoyed Beast, which was a dark, very dark Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I noticed that she started a new series. Actually, book 3 in the series came out in April. And so I thought I was intrigued enough to want to give these a go. The one that's just recently come out is Contempt, that came out on the 25th of April. And so I thought I really want to give this one a go, and Confess sounds like it's an arranged marriage, or a marriage of convenience. So then the next one I've got on my list is a little bit of fun. It's called Alien Meat Market, and one of the reasons I downloaded it is very much because of the title. I was like, Alien Meat Market? This sounds wild and crazy. It's a book by Lizzy Bequin, and I have read a couple of her books before. The books I've read have been a Megaverse, and she writes kind of reverse harem why choose romances. Now, this particular one is an alien abduction romance. It's about a human that's been abducted from Earth and is now being sold in an alien meat market, and she is sold to the Raksha. So I think this is like Sold to the Raksha series or something like that, and it's book 1. And I actually signed up to Lizzy's newsletter, so it came through. I saw this, I was very much intrigued. It absolutely made me smile, not only the front cover but also the name of the book, and I was intrigued enough that I've downloaded it, and when I fancy an alien abduction romance called Alien Meat Market, I am going to be reading this one. Then turning a bit more serious, we've got Mile High by Liz Tomforde. Now this one is, you know, has been so well received. The reviews on these books are amazing. Mile High is the first one, and I know everyone loves book 2 in this series as well, called The Right Move. I absolutely will be getting around to these. It sounds really amazing. The only thing that's put me off about Mile High is the fact that it's 603 pages long. It's absolutely a chunk of a book. I'm very much put off, a bit like with trilogies or duets or trilogies, I'm very much put off by slightly longer books. So 603 pages is a time investment. It'll probably take me about 4 nights to read. And so I really need to, one, feel that I've got the time and space to read it, because I don't like to linger on a book. Once I've started reading something, I like to get through it and finish it. And I also don't want to feel like I'm behind in my reading goals. So I like to read about 15 a month, so 1 book every 2 nights. So if this is going to take me 4 nights, I need to feel like I'm actually ahead of the game. So I've got time to invest, spending the time to read this one. I know I'm actually going to love it when I finally pick it up, and I'm going to be kicking myself for leaving it for so long. But that's where we're at with it. Hopefully I won't take too long to get around to it. So the next 2 books I'm going to talk about together, because they're both by the same author, and it's by Emilia Finn. I've got Sinful Deed and I've got Always You. Now the reason these are both on there, and I'll give you a little bit of history on this one and my relationship with this author, not that I've got a relationship with the author, but how I feel about some of her books. So my favourite book of 2021, and probably in my top 5 books of all time, is Pawns in the Bishop's Game by Emilia Finn, and it's book 1 in one of her series, and it's actually series 3 that she's written in the same town. Now, as I've said before, I'm a bit of a completionist, and so when I first read this book, I picked up the book completely accidentally. I was recommended, it was just a recommendation through Amazon. It's like, if you like this book, then you'll like this, or like what to read next. I absolutely believed when I was reading it that it was a mafia romance. That's what I picked it up for. And then I realised it was something different, and also part of this series. And then when I looked at it, I realised it was an interconnecting series set in the same town. So some of the characters that were in this book had appeared in other books in her series. So what I did was I went right back to the beginning. Instead of reading book 2, I went right back to the beginning and started with her first series. Now the first series she wrote was called the Rolling On series. It's all focused around a family who owns the Rolling On gym in this particular town. The series is absolutely brilliant. I totally loved it. It's kind of a small town sports romance. They're all MMA fighters. They're training in this gym. There's a little bit of romantic suspense going on, but basically they're kind of small town contemporary style romances. Thoroughly enjoyed them. Really, really good. And then we move on to her second series, which is the Survivor series. And this is, again, a bit of a spin-off from The Rollers. You get to see some of the characters in that book, and it focuses around the sheriff's family and kind of what's happening with them. Now, unfortunately, I absolutely love The Rollers, but the Survivor series I haven't enjoyed as much. And so I've been really, really struggling to get through this series. So the next one that I need to read is book 5 in that series. It's called Always You, and it's part of a duet. So there's 2 things that are stopping me from reading this one, as you probably guessed already. One, I'm struggling with the series overall, but I absolutely want to get through this final duet so that I can move on to then Pawns in the Bishop's Game and carry on with that series, which I absolutely love. But also because it is a duet, and as you know, like I've said, I've got to read 2 books to read 1 love story, and so that is also putting me off a little bit. But I will absolutely get around to it. I'm desperate to get back to Pawns in the Bishop's Game and carry on with that series. So I will get through that. So the second book I've got by Emilia Finn then is Sinful Deed, which is book 2 in her May at Justice series. Now, why is this one on my Kindle? And it's completely set in a different town, different characters, completely away from the Rollers and everything else that's going on in those other series. So I thought, I really like Emilia Finn. It's a fresh start to start a new series that she's written. And I read book 1 and I did enjoy it, but this is where I realised that the books weren't going to be about individual characters. This was kind of like a serialised story that was going to run for very many books, and like I say, we're already up to 9. It's basically focused around a coroner who works with the police to figure out how people have died and if they've been murdered, and the police officer obviously tries to solve the murders. And it's kind of, like I say, it's a serialized like storyline or saga, so it completely revolves around the same group of people, focuses on the main hero and heroine who have an on again off again relationship as the books unfold. So again, I really wanted to read this. It was going to be a fresh start. I was going to start something new, but because of all the things I've already mentioned, I don't really like reading story. It feels to me like it's in a bit of an investment to read all this, like, you know, to read a story about the same couple. So again, I've been putting this one off, but I think I definitely will get around to reading them because they do intrigue me. It is very interesting. I can see it being a TV show at some point as well, just because of the way it's been done. But yeah, I won't say any more on those, but those 2 are sitting on my Kindle and eventually I will get around to them. So the next one I've got is Famine by Thalassa, and this is book 3 in her 4 Horsemen series. Obviously they're all focused on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. I have already read Pestilence and War, so I've got Famine and Death to go. I read these last summer when I was on holiday. I really enjoyed books 1 and 2, and I downloaded 3 ready to go, and I've just not got around to it yet. There's no real reason for it other than I just haven't got around to it yet, but it's sitting there waiting for me when I fancy it, and I absolutely want to get to Death. Death for sure intrigues me the most, and so I'm very much looking forward to his book and getting to book 4. So I just need to get to through Famine first, and then we're there. And then the final one that I've got on my list is A Deal with the Devil by Elizabeth O'Rourke. Again, this is on my Kindle because it's been recommended by several booktubers. It looks very interesting. It's kind of an enemies or frenemies to lovers sort of contemporary sort of style of book. And also Elizabeth O'Rourke is also an author that I've never read before, but it's going to be at Rare 23 London for a book signing, and so I really want to read at least 1 book of hers so that I have a little bit of context about her as an author before I go to that book signing. So definitely get around to that. And in fact, I'm thinking of doing a kind of a vlog style video of Rare 23 in London, but also a video before that where I kind of look at all the authors that are going, look at all the signatures that I definitely want to get, any pre-orders that I want to do, and if there's any authors like the ones that I've already mentioned, like Julia Wolfe and Anna Huang and Elizabeth O'Rourke, who are going to be there, who I haven't read any of their books from yet but really want to, then I'll definitely read those ahead of time and let you guys know what I think so that I'm ready to go when I finally make it to the book signing. That's all of the books that are sitting there waiting for me on my Kindle. Like I say, I'm very much a mood reader, so I don't know when I'll get to these, if I'll get to them, or if I'll finally remove them before I move on. But they're definitely books that I really want to read, and they're sitting there because they are a priority. So as soon as the mood strikes me, I'll definitely be picking some of these up, and hopefully you'll see me review some of these in my upcoming wrap-up videos. Yeah, if you have read any of these, please comment in the comment box below. Let me know which ones I absolutely need to get to sooner than some of the others. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content from me. So thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Then I've got Famine by Thalassa. So Famine is book 3 in her it's a 4-part series. What's it called? So it's got 2 things against it. So it sounds like it's going to be a marriage of convenience. I think it's an arranged marriage. Yeah. I absolutely love Matthew. I'm not explaining myself very well here, am I? Start again. And sometimes, yeah.